Hey, shalom, shalom. Halayla tawab. Anak na waha ay bar yasha Allah hawalakim la atam. Call shabawai ba'aracha wa kaksho Yahweh bahasham Yahweh. Hey, we the Hebrew Israelites coming to you week in and week out through the spirit and power of Yahweh bahasham Yahweh to preach to you so-called Negroes, Latinos, Native Americans, West Indians, Haitians, and Israelite foreigners. Nacham atam kaya hamalak wa tashemayim korab. Repent, yea, for the kingdom of heaven is at hand. Call Layim La, Yahweh, Bahasham Yahweh Shah, Bahasham Racha HaKodash, Wa Mashana, Kabadim Zukoyim Nawa, Wa Malaakim Shor Yeshla Zukoyim Racha Gadawa, Wa Chasad, Wa Shalom, Wa Barakim, Laha Bachayim Shahagav Shal Shalom. Alright, so all praise to the Most High Yahweh, which means He exists. Bahasham, in the name Yahweh Shah, He delivers. Double honors to the elders and apostles of Israel, the elders and apostles of Great Millstone, and mercy, peace, and blessings to the elect of the nation of Israel. Shalom, which means peace. So today's lesson is going into Zephaniah chapter 3 and verse 9. Tazapanya Shalash wa Tashai, which is 3 and 9 by a Baryath. Alright, it reads, For then will I turn to the people a pure language, that they may all call upon the name of the Lord to serve him with one consent. Now, the most important part of the language by a Baryath is going to be the Lord's name. So it says that they may call upon the name of the Lord, Yahweh Bahasham Yahweh Shah, to serve him with one consent. Now let's go into this word, one consent. It says shakam, which means shoulder, shoulder to shoulder. It says between the shoulders, shoulder to shoulder, showing that unison, that one consent together. You see, everybody speaking the same thing. It says, for then will I turn to the people a pure language. All right, when you go into this word pure, common definition in Google will give you unmixed, unadulterated. All right, which the Lashwan Kodash is pure. It's the holy tongue. It says pure, barar. It says polish, cleanse, or make bright, test or prove, to cleanse, to purify. It says be clean. All right. To separate, to sever. All right, to sever. All right, it's the chosen language of the Lord. It's the language of the heavens. All right, and it's separate from the rest of these different languages, Shapayim or Shapawath, because Kaya is severed in being that it's pure and it's not adulterated. When you go into Genesis chapter 11 and chapter 10, it talks about how the languages, or more specifically chapter 11, Barashith chapter 11, it goes into how the languages was confounded. All right, which we'll get out of Wamatazah Baharacha through the Spirit. All right, so going to Genesis chapter, we're gonna start Genesis chapter 10, because a lot of times people like to say, hey, the Lord spoke Aramaic. All right, which we're gonna get into some edification on that as well out of Wamatazah. So this is Barashith chapter 10, and we'll start at verse 1 and skip around in some portions of this chapter. It says, now these are the generations of the son of Noah, Shem, Ham, and Japheth. Shem going into name, also name, memorial. Let me see. Name, memorial, memory, celebrated name. And if I'm not mistaken, Shem also goes into reputation. Name, reputation, fame, glory. All right, memorial, monument, you see. And it's known as all these things. Shem is known as all those things because that ties into Barashith chapter 9 and verse 27. Going into the blessing of Shem, it says the Most High shall enlarge Japheth. All right, Japheth going into Japheth because he had all that land and he shall dwell in the tents of Shem. All right, that's what the Lord, he was with the line of Shem. All right, and Canaan shall be his servant, because when you go into Canaan, it pretty much, it goes into what he was prophesied to do, is be a servant. Because going back to the curse of Canaan was cursed, but his forefather, Ham, pretty much saw Noah naked, and that's why Canaan got that he was prophesied to be a servant. But pretty much going to the point, it says he shall dwell in the tents of Shem. All right, that's what again, that was the righteous line. That's why it says he shall dwell in the tents of Shem. All right, going back. It's a lot. Phone moving kind of slow. It says, we're gonna skip down to verse 21. All right, because when you go into, if you look in history, you know, you got different a lot of times when people move or you migrate, you know, languages will be you may speak a language differently. All right, so for example, with like Britain, all right, in America, you know, they still speak the English, but it's a little different from the English in Britain. All right, so reason why I wanted to bring that out is because every form of language comes from Ibariath Hebrew. All right, so continuing on, this is Barashid chapter 10 and verse 21. It says, unto Shem also, the father of all the children of Ibar, the brother of Japheth the elder, even to him were children born, the children of Shem, Ayalam and Ashawar, and Arphaxad and Lawad and Aram. Yeah, Lawad and Aram. All right, now you had if I'm not mistaken, a brother can correct me if I'm wrong, but you had two Arams, all right? But one particular Aram, you know, he had descendants, which this chapter goes into. It says, and the children of Aram, Uz and Hol and Gether and Mash. All right. Now, this says, let's go into this. It says, of Aram, all right, these are her sons, Uz, Hol, and Gether, which I'm going to click into one of them. Let's go to Hol. It says, of a district of Aramaic, it says, understands it to be the district of Hulay. Let's get another one. This is Mash. It says, drawn out. It says, sprung from Aram, and therefore to be sought in Syria or Mesopotamia. All right, so they pretty much the descendants of Aram. Now I wanted to go to this point, this particular precept, because those that dwelt in those lands, they spoke Syrian, Syriac, Aramaic, Aramyath. But Aram, he spoke Hebrew, but his descendants, being that they as they were in their respective lands, you know, they spoke Syriac. Just to prove that point, going into this, it says Aram or Aramaeans exalted Aram or Syria, the nation, the Syrian or Aramaean people, which pretty much Aramya will be the language. And let's get that. This is Yeshaya, also Isaiah, chapter 36. In verse 11, it says, then said Elikim and Shebna and Joah unto Reb Shekeh, speak, I pray thee, unto thy servants in the Syrian language, for we understand it, and speak not unto us in the Jews' language, in the ears of the people that are on the wall. Now, let's go into Syrian. It says Aramyath. All right. So it says Aramaic language. Now, those were for the descendants of Aram and the people that dwelt in those lands. All right, and just going further into that, let's get Barashith, Genesis chapter 31. I'll start at verse 20. This is Barashith chapter 31 and verse 20. It says, and Yaquab stole away unawares to Laban the Syrian, and that he told him not that he fled. And pretty much Laban was known as the Syrian because he dwelt in those lands, and he also spoke the language. Because if we go down to the 43rd verse, it says, and Laban answered and said unto Yaquab, these daughters are my daughters, and these children are my children. These cattle are my cattle, and all that thou seest is mine. What can I do this day unto these my daughters, or unto their children which they have borne? It says, now therefore come thou, let us make a covenant, I and thou, and let it be for a witness between me and thee. And Yaquab took a stone and set it up for a pillar. And Yaquab said unto his brethren, gather stones. And they took stones and made an heap. And they did eat upon there upon the heap. And Laban called it Yagar Shahad Watah, but Yaquab called it Gal'id. Reason being that they called it two different things is because, again, Laban was Laban was living in those lands, so he spoke Syriac, Aramaic. It says from a word derived from an unused root, meaning to gather, a derivation of a root corresponding to shahad. It says witness heap. And you go down to Strong's definition, it says Yagar Shahad Watah. All right, it says Aramaic from a word derived from an unused root, corresponding to H7717. All right. So going back to Tazapanya, Zephaniah 3 and 9, it's not speaking on Aramaic. All right, because when you go into the actual language, let's get Jeremiah chapter 10 and verse 11. It says, thus shall ye say unto them, the gods that have not made the heavens and the earth, even they shall perish from the earth and from under these heavens. All right, let's go into this verse. When you look at it, when you compare this to Ibariath, all right, it's not the same. You can see where it was changed. It's a derivative. It came from Ibariath. All right. So let's just prove that point. It says when you go into this word, it says Dana. All right. When you go into that, Dana, Dan comes from. I'm actually going to it. Dan comes from Da, which is going to go into Za, which means this or that. All right, Za. That's how you say this or that by Ibariath in Hebrew. All right. Which it says thus. So let's get another example. This is same verse. Daya will be Za. All right, and as we know by Ibariath, Hashemayim, the heavens. All right, how they would say it by Aramyath would be Shemayan, as we can see the example right here. It has the Shah, the Ma, the Ya, and the Na. Right there, Shemayan. That's how they say it in Aramaic, but we can see that they put the M right there. All right. Same as if like in English, you know, with the word color. All right. In England, they spell it COLOUR, but in America, you spell it COLOR. So you start adding different things. So that's not the pure tongue. All right. All right. So going back, let's get this one. This is Shawapatiyam, Judges, chapter 12 and verse 1. It says, and the men of Aparyam gathered themselves together and went northward and said unto Yapatah, wherefore passest thou over to fight against the children of Ammon, and didst not call us to go with thee? We will burn thine house upon thee with fire. And Yapatah said unto them, I and my people were at great strife with the children of Ammon. And when I called you, ye delivered me not out of their hands. And when I saw that ye delivered me not, I put my life in my hands and passed over against the children of Ammon. And the Lord delivered them into my hand. Wherefore then are ye come up unto me this day to fight against me? Then Yapatah gathered together all the men of Gilead, and fought with Aparyam, and the men of Gilead smote Aparyam, because they said, yea, Gileadites are fugitives of Aparyam among the Ephraimites and among the Manassites. And the Gileadites took the passages Shal Yaradan before the Ephraimites. And it was so that when those Ephraimites which were escaped said, Let me go over, that the men of Gilead said unto him, Art thou an Ephraimite? If he said, La, then said they unto him, Say now Shabaloth. And he said, Sabaloth, for he could not frame to pronounce it right. Then they took him and slew him at the passages Shal Yaradan, and there fell at that time of the Ephraimites 42,000. All right. And basically the point that I want to get from this is you have a specific way you say different things in a language, like a proper way. All right. So when we look at language, you had different time periods to where you had just for example English, which that's not a pure tongue, but when you just comparing it to this, you got a regular English, and then you got like slang, you would say. So this is an example of slang, because when you go into this term Shabaloth, all right, which means an ear of corn or a cluster or a grain, a flowing stream. It comes from shabar, which means flowing skirt or to train, meaning to flow. All right, now going back to this. This is an example of what you would call like like slang. It says sabaloth, an ear or grain of wheat, because the specific word they were saying was shabaloth, but this is a dialect of Ephraim. All right, and that's how they could tell at that particular moment that, all right, he was an Ephraimite, which this was the tribes warring against each other, but just showing an example of a dialect. But nevertheless, let's go back to Barashith, Genesis 11. It says, and the whole earth was of one language and of one speech. Now I'm just curious what it says in the text commentary. As you look up online, it'll say, hey, the first language was Phoenician or something like that. I'm gonna go back. This is Genesis 11. It says, now the whole earth had one language and one speech. I'll skip down some. Well, I'm going to continue on. I think it's in Isaiah 19 and 18. It says, and the whole earth was of one language and of one speech. And it came to pass as they journeyed from the east that they found a plain in the land of Shinar, and they dwelt there. Now, I'm gonna go there. This is Yeshaya, Isaiah chapter 19 and verse 18. It says, and in that day shall 5 cities in the land of Egypt speak the language of Canaan, and swear to the Lord of hosts, one shall be called the city of destruction. Now, this language is Ibarioth. All right. Let's go to it. They probably took it out, but even the scholars that say, Hebrew was the first language, which I don't see it in here right now. I could have seen it somewhere else, but continuing on. All right, that language was going into Hebrew, because at one point in time, going back to Genesis 11, the whole earth spoke Hebrew. All right, this is Barashith 11, and back to verse 2. Verse 2, it says, and it came to pass as they journeyed from the east that they found a plain in the land of Shinar, and they dwelt there. And they said one to another, Go to, let us make brick and burn them thoroughly. And they had brick for stone, and slime had they for mortar. And they said, Go to, let us build us a city and a tower whose top may reach unto heaven, and let us make us a name, lest we be scattered abroad upon the face of the whole earth. And the Lord came down to see the city and the tower which the children of men builded. And the Lord said, Behold, the people is one, and they have all one language. And this they began to do. And nothing now will be restrained from them, which they have imagined to do. Go to, let us go down, and there confound their language, that they may not understand one another's speech. So the Lord scattered them abroad from thence upon the face of all the earth. And they left off to build the city. Therefore is the name of it called Babal, because the Lord did there confound the language of all the earth. and from thence did the Lord scatter them abroad upon the face of the earth. Now let's go into this word babal, which comes from the word balal. Babal means confusion by mixing. All right, because when you go into the other languages, it's just a mixture of Hebrew. That's why when you go into the different languages, you'll see like Amir, like Vladimir Putin. His name Vladimir. Amir, that's Arabic. All right, which Amir goes back to Amar, which means to say, to rule, or to command. That's Iboriath. All right, you go to Lad. Lad comes from Yalad, which means a young boy. Or you go to Cab. That comes from Marakav, which means a vehicle. All right, now that comes from Balal. Babal, as it says, to mix, mingle, confuse, confound. It says specifically with oil, by implication, to mix, to fodder, anoint, confound, fade. All right, that's why when you go into Bon Sirach 1 and 1, let's get that. It talks about how the Hebrew has more force in it, and that's because it's not faded. All right, when you go into the other languages, they're pretty much faded out. It's a mixture. it's not the pure tongue. All right, let's get this. It says, wherefore let me entreat you to read it with favor and intention, and to pardon us. This is Bon Sirach 1 and 1, the prologue, and to pardon us wherein we may seem to come short of some words which we have labored to interpret. Because when you go into other languages, specifically like English, it's words in English ain't gonna have the same meaning per se as they do in Hebrew. That's why you got to go into the Hebrew to get a total understanding. All right, because when you go into Hebrew, you actually get a better synopsis and more insight on what the word is going into. It says, for the same things uttered in Hebrew and translated into another tongue have not the same force in them. All right, because they faded. Babal, it's mixture, it's watered down. All right, it says, have not the same force in them, and not only these things, but the law itself. All right, and that's why when you go into words like keep or break, it has way more. It expounds more by Ibariath when you get it in Hebrew. It says, have not the same force in them, and not only these things, but the law itself and the prophets and the rest of the book have no small difference when they are spoken in their own language. All right. So continuing on, this actually occurred when the languages were confounded. Bara'ashith chapter 10 and verse 25. It says, and unto Ibar were born two sons. All right, which will be Shanya Banyam. All right, two sons. Two sons. Yep, Shanya Banyam. It says, and unto Ibar were born two sons, and the name of one was Palag, for in his days was the earth divided, and his brother's name was Joktan. Let's go into Palag or Peleg. It says division, because pretty much in his time, that's when the languages was confounded. All right. All right, so give me a second. Let's get go to these definitions. All right, so when you go into Aramaic, it says Aramaic is a Northwest Shemitic. All right, and we see these terms Shemitic, because what language did Sham speak? He spoke Hebrew. All right, you see when you go to Yashma Allah, Arabic, Hebrew. When you go to Aramyath, a derivative of Hebrew, came from Hebrew. It says a language that originated among the Aramaeans in the ancient region of Syria and quickly spread to Mesopotamia and Eastern Anatolia, which is modern-day Turkey, where it has been continually written and spoken in different varieties for over 3,000 years, which eat the meat, spit out the bones. I'm not sure if that, it says over 3,000 year part is on point, but we do know that it was around the time of like the ancient times. It says Aramaic served as a language of public life and administration of ancient kingdoms and empires, and also a language of divine worship and religious study. Several modern varieties, the Neo-Aramaic languages, are still spoken. All right, but I want to get a precept on this. Is Aramaic served as a language of public life because it is parts to where they were speaking Aramaic. All right, let me see. Let's get Daniel chapter 2 and verse 1. It says, and in the second year of the reign of Nebuchadnezzar dreamed dreams, wherewith his spirit was troubled, and his sleep brake from him. Then the king commanded to call the magicians and astrologers and the sorcerers and the Chaldeans to shew the king his dreams. So they came and stood before the king, and the king said unto them, I have dreamed a dream, and my spirit was troubled to know the dream. Then spake the Chaldeans to the king, and Aramaic, O king, live forever. Tell thy servants the dream, and we will shew the interpretation. Now, the Chaldeans are going to those that were the inhabitants of Babylon, Babel. All right, it says, then spake the Chaldeans to the king in Aramaic. All right, this term Aramaic comes from Aramia. It says Aramaic language, the language of Aram. It says Assyrian tongue, Assyrian tongue. All right, the Aramaean tongue and Aramaean Syrian. So pretty much, like I said in this article, it was used in public life, at different periods of time. However, that's not the language that the Lord spoke. Let's actually prove that. Let's get let me see. Acts chapter 26 and verse 14, it says, and when we were all fallen to the earth, I heard a voice speaking unto me, saying in the Hebrew tongue, Ibariath tongue, Saul, Saul, which is Sha'al or Sha'awal. Yeah, Sha'awal. Why persecutest thou me? It is hard for thee to kick against the pricks. And I said, who art thou, Lord? And he said, I am Yahweh whom thou persecutest. All right, so Yahweh spoke Hebrew. So it's right there. All right, let's go to Matthew chapter 27, verse 46. It says, all right, now that we see the Lord, he spoke Hebrew. The Lord said he don't change. All right, it says, and about the 9th hour, Yahweh cried with a loud voice, saying, Alayah, lama shabachthaniah. That is to say, my God, why hast thou forsaken me? Now, when you go into that, Allah is going to be God, power. The I part, Yah, that's making it possessive, Alayah. Why is lama. All right, that's how you say why by Barith, lama. It says forsaken. The word for forsaken is going to be shabak. All right, and then when you're speaking to someone, and you're using the past tense, you'll put the tha right there, so it'll be shabak tha. All right, and then it's being done to someone or yourself, you'll put the naya part. Like when you go to the Holyam Psalms 51 and verse 11, it says la'a dashalayak naya. All right, the naya part is talking about me when you're referring to yourself. But nevertheless, we can see right here, when you click into this, it'll say the Lord spoke Aramaic. You see, but the scriptures say, hey, the Lord don't change. You see, so he spoke Ibariath. All right, we saw that he was spoken Ibariath by Acts 26, 14 and 15. All right, so the Lord has always spoken Hebrew. All right, so from there, let's go back to this. It says modern Hebrew. I'm gonna read it again, because when you go to Zephaniah chapter 3 and verse 9, this is not talking about Yiddish, or it's not talking about modern Hebrew, which will be Ath Zaman Ibariath. All right, Ath Zaman, Ath with Zaman time, with time or a season. Zaman goes into a season with a season, which roughly translates to modern, which when you go into modern, a season goes into temporal, so it's for a certain period of time. All right, it ain't gonna last. You see, because when you go into modern Hebrew, it's a mixture. It's not the pure tongue. All right, now let's prove that. Let's go into that. This is modern Hebrew. It says modern Hebrew or New Hebrew is new. Yeah, this wasn't what was spoken back in the ancient times. It says generally referred to by speakers simply as Hebrew. All right, now this is in one of their articles. Esau came up with it. So that go back to the scripture that said that they shall make their tongue fall upon themselves. You see, because they're saying right here this is new. All right, so they so-called revived this. All right. So it says that was revived as a spoken language in 19th and 20th centuries and the standard form of Hebrew spoken today. It is the official language of the state of Yasha'Allah. Among Canaan languages, modern Hebrew is the only one spoken today. Now let's skip down some. It says modern Hebrew is, hold on. It says spoken in ancient times, ancient Hebrew, a member of the Canaan branch of the Shemitic language family, which that's off, all right, because Hebrew is a language in itself and everything derived from it, which we got in Genesis 11, verses 1 through 9. Now, the point that I want to get from this was, I think it was the background or the revival, because as we know, Amalek got to get his hands in there. It says Hebrew had been spoken at various times for a number of purposes throughout the diaspora. During the old Yeshuv, it had developed into a spoken lingua franca among the Jews of Palestine. Elazar ben Yehuda, that's what it's supposed to say, but it says Ben Yehuda, then led a revival of the Hebrew language. Now, he didn't revive it. It says just saying he didn't use the ancient Hebrew. It says, as a mother tongue in the late 19th century and early 20th century, modern Hebrew used biblical Hebrew morphemes, Mishnaic spelling and grammar, and Sephardic pronunciation. Many idioms and calques were from Yiddish. All right, and when you go into Yiddish, that's pretty much going into, they took the Assyrian characters and they speak. It's similar to the modern, but they pretty much created a whole bunch of new words and stuff like that, which we can click on it after this. But it says its acceptance by early Jewish immigrants to Ottoman Palestine was caused primarily by support of organizations of Edmund James de Rothschild, Amalek. You see, because Elder Malcolm made Zaquan Malcolm made a very good point. Because if it was the regular Hebrew, every Jake would know the name of the Lord, so to speak. Because if they put if they made it easy for Jake, you see, by providing the paleo, that would be the demise or the downfall of his kingdom, so to speak, because every Jake would have a name, and they know that it's power, because the scriptures say if pretty much if the whole nation was to repent and turn and face the east, that would be it, All right, but nevertheless, modern Hebrew is a mixture, as this says. It says Ben Yehuda, codified and planned modern Hebrew using 8,000 words from the scriptures and 20,000 words from rabbinical commentaries. Many new words were borrowed from Arabic. Arabic. Yashama Allah, Mayan Yashama Allah, from Arabic, due to the language's common Shemitic roots. Now, it does have common Shemitic roots because Yashama Allah Arabic is a Shemitic language, but it's not the pure tongue. All right, it does have some super similar similarities going into when you see the term Amir, you see Laham, that's Hebrew, Kaya, bread, while Laham by Yashama Allah is bread. All right, it's similarities in that. All right, now going back, Yiddish pretty much was a language spoken in the Slavic countries. It says I'm gonna read. It says a West Germanic language historically spoken by Ashkenazi Jays. It originates from 9th century Central Europe, providing the nascent Ashkenazi community with a vernacular based on High German fused with many elements from Hebrew. and to some extent Aramaic. So pretty much going into mixtures. So we know that Yiddish or the modern Hebrew is not referring to the Zephaniah 3 and 9, because those are mixtures. All right, now you get some you get some words, or modern Hebrew has some Yiddish in it. All right, because they got some idioms and some calques from Yiddish, and they also use, like, this goes into some words from the scriptures, but they also added a whole bunch of other words in there. You see, so it can't be, it's a mixture, so it's not that pure tongue. All right, and also going back to the modern Hebrew, they use the Masoretic vowel points, which the Masoretes were a group of so-called Jewish scholars, all right, which they were Edomites, and they pretty much came around, it says, the 5th to 10th century AD, but that says common error right there. So pretty much they use it, they said, to better the pronunciation. Oh, right, it says each group compiled a system of pronunciation and grammatical guides in the form of diacritical notes, and they said to better, which I'm saying in quotations, to better the pronunciation. Now we know that Hebrew is a abgad or abjad, and what I mean by that is pretty much the pronunciation and the words are passed down. All right, so it was already understood. It was our tradition to pass things down. All right, so they pretty much did this to deceive. You see, so when we see going back to Zephaniah chapter 3 and verse 9, it says, "For then will I turn to the people a pure language, that they may all call upon the name of the Lord to serve him with one consent." That's talking about the Lashon Kodash. All right, which we have the Lashon Kodash. You see, and you'll actually see that. People like to downplay the Lashon Kodash, but we can see the Lashon in different languages. This is on Britannica. It says Shamash, which that goes into the Hebrew word for sun. Just getting an example. It says sun, Hashamash, sun, sunrise, sun rising, Shamash. All right, so going back, Shamash, Sumerian Utu in Mesopotamian religion, the god of the sun. All right, but Shamash is just talking about the sun. And at the same time, this shows that everything comes from Hebrew, because it says Akkadian. All right, Akkadian, that was like way after the languages was pretty much, or just showing you that everything comes from Hebrew, because this is in some other civilization. All right, because Shamash again is the name for the sun. It says Utu. It says Shamash, also under the Akkadian name Shamash. So pretty much just showing you that it's different. It's getting an example of seeing Hebrew in different societies and languages, and we still see it today. Like the example we got previously, lad, cab comes from Maraka, which means vehicle. Lad comes from Yalad, which means a young boy or a young child. All right. So Adawan Ratazah, Zabana Yapa, Lord's will, that was a beautiful edification through the spirit. Wa Adawan Ratazah, Atham Yashewam, Tawab, Lord's will, you all have a good day. Well, Atham, Adawan Ratazah, Atham Yash Layala, Lord's will, you all have a good night. And call Halayim La Yahweh Bahasham Yahweh Shah Basham Chakodash. A double honor to the elders and apostles of great millstone that told me this truth and rule well. And much respect to you brothers out there pushing this truth with all righteousness and sincerity. Shalom, shalom. Halayim La Tawab, shalom.